As I browsed through Airbnb, I stumbled upon a quaint little cottage nestled in the woods. The photos showed a cozy living room with a fireplace, a fully equipped kitchen, and a private deck overlooking a serene lake. It was the perfect getaway for a solo traveler like me, looking to escape the hustle and bustle of city life. I messaged the host, an elderly woman named Agatha, and she promptly replied with a warm welcome. She mentioned that the cottage had been in her family for generations and that it held many secrets and stories. I didn't think much of it at the time, but as soon as I arrived, I sensed something strange. The driveway leading up to the cottage was long and winding, surrounded by dense forest on either side. As I walked towards the entrance, I noticed a series of odd symbols etched into the wooden doorframe. They looked like ancient runes or hieroglyphics, but they seemed to shift and change before my eyes. I felt a shiver down my spine as I pushed open the creaky door. Inside, the cottage was exactly as depicted in the photos. However, there were small details that caught my attention. A framed photo of Agatha's ancestors hung on the wall, their faces seeming to follow me wherever I went. And the air inside the cottage felt heavy and oppressive, as if it was holding on to some dark secret. That night, I retired early to my bedroom, exhausted from my journey. But as I lay in bed, I heard whispers in my ear. At first, I thought it was just the wind outside, but then I realized the voices were coming from within the walls. They were faint, but unmistakable, muffled moans and groans, as if someone was trapped beneath the floorboards. I tried to ignore them, telling myself it was just my imagination playing tricks on me. But the next day, I found a hidden room underneath the cottage. Inside, I discovered a series of journals belonging to Agatha's great-grandfather. He had written about his experiences with the supernatural, how he had made a pact with a malevolent spirit to protect his family's land. It became clear to me that the symbols on the doorframe were not just decorative. They were a warning, a protection against whatever evil lurked within the cottage. And the whispers I heard in my ear were the spirits of those who had crossed paths with Agatha's ancestors. They were trying to communicate with me, to warn me away from the cottage before it was too late. I packed my bags and left immediately, never looking back. But even now, years later, I can still hear those whispers in my mind, urging me to tell their story to anyone who would listen. I searched through Airbnb listings for my upcoming vacation. I stumbled upon one that caught my eye. It was an old Victorian mansion in the heart of the city, with intricate woodwork and ornate chandeliers. The host, Mrs. Jenkins, promised a unique and memorable experience, but what she didn't mention was the terrifying secret lurking within its walls. I arrived at the house late at night, eager to settle into my cozy room with the plush velvet bedding and antique furniture. But as soon as I stepped inside, I felt a chill run down my spine. There was something off about the place, something that made me feel like I was being watched. The next morning, I woke up to find a strange note on my pillow. It was written in a shaky handwriting, warning me to leave immediately and never come back. The message spoke of a dark presence that haunted the house, a malevolent spirit that had been awakened by my arrival. At first, I dismissed it as a prank, but as the days passed, I began to experience strange occurrences that couldn't be explained. Doors would slam shut on their own, and I would hear whispers in my ear when I was alone. I started to see shadowy figures darting around the corners of my vision, always just out of reach. One night, I decided to investigate the source of the haunting. I snuck into the attic, where I found a hidden room filled with old newspapers and photographs. As I sifted through the documents, I discovered that Mrs. Jenkins had died under mysterious circumstances many years ago, and her ghost was said to still roam the halls of her beloved home. But there was more to the story than that. I found a letter from Mrs. Jenkins, addressed to her niece, who had inherited the house after her death. In the letter, she confessed to making a deal with a dark entity to bring her back to life, promising to serve it forever in exchange for eternal youth and beauty. But the entity had other plans, and now it was using the house to trap unsuspecting travelers and feast on their souls. I knew then that I had to get out of there before it was too late. I packed my bags and fled the house, leaving behind the creepy atmosphere and the malevolent spirits that haunted its halls. But even as I drove away, I could feel the eyes of Mrs. Jenkins watching me, waiting for me to return so she could fulfill her end of the bargain. From that day forward, I vowed never to stay in another Airbnb again, knowing that sometimes the scariest experiences can be found in the most unlikely places. As I walked into the cozy Airbnb cabin, I couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. The host had warned me about strange noises and unexplained occurrences, but I had brushed it off as mere superstition. Little did I know, my weekend getaway would turn out to be a living nightmare. The first sign of trouble came when I noticed a faint whispering in my ear. At first, I thought it was just the wind rustling through the trees, but then I heard words, "Get out while you still can." My heart racing, I tried to shake off the feeling and went to bed early, hoping that the voices would stop. But they only grew louder and more urgent. In the middle of the night, I woke up to find a figure standing over me. It was tall and gaunt, with eyes black as coal. I froze, paralyzed with fear, as it spoke in a low, raspy voice. "This is my home," it hissed, "and you don't belong here." I scrambled out of bed and ran for the door, but it slammed shut before I could reach it. The figure began to laugh maniacally, its voice echoing off the walls. I knew then that I was trapped, at the mercy of some malevolent force. As the days passed, the occurrences only intensified. Doors would slam shut on their own, objects would move around the room, and the whispers grew louder and more menacing. I knew I had to escape, but every time I tried to leave, the figure appeared, blocking my way. One night, I found a hidden room deep within the cabin. Inside, I discovered a journal belonging to the previous tenant. As I read through the pages, I learned that this wasn't the first time such events had occurred. The host had been hiding the truth from guests, hoping to keep them safe. But I knew too late that I was caught in a cycle of horror, trapped by the ghostly presence that haunted these woods. My only hope now was to uncover the secrets of the past and appease the vengeful spirit. But as I delved deeper into the mystery, I realized that sometimes the truth is better left unspoken. And sometimes, the only way to survive is to run as far away as possible. As I scroll through the reviews of my latest Airbnb rental, I can't help but feel a sense of unease. The pictures look perfect, a cozy little cottage nestled in the woods, surrounded by tall trees and a babbling brook. But something doesn't quite add up. I arrive at the property in the late afternoon, eager to settle into my home for the next few days. As I step out of my car, I notice that the front door is slightly ajar. I push it open and call out, "Hello?" But there's no answer. I enter the cottage and begin unpacking my belongings when I hear strange noises coming from the back room. It sounds like someone is rummaging through my stuff. My heart races as I approach the room, calling out again, "Is anyone here?" But still, there's no response. I slowly open the door to find every single one of my personal items scattered all over the floor, my clothes, my books, even my journal. It looks like whoever was inside has searched through everything, leaving nothing untouched. I try to shake off the feeling of violation and continue exploring the rest of the cottage. But as night begins to fall, I start to hear whispers in my ear. At first, I think it's just the wind, but then I realize the voices are coming from within the walls. They're soft and muffled, but they seem to be coming from everywhere and nowhere at the same time. I try to ignore them and go to bed early, hoping that tomorrow will bring some answers. But as I lie awake listening to the whispers grow louder, I know that this trip is not going to end well. In the morning, I pack my things and leave before dawn, never looking back. But the memories of that creepy true Airbnb horror story stay with me forever. As I settled into my cozy Airbnb rental, nestled in the heart of the woods, I couldn't shake off the feeling that something was off. The host had been friendly and welcoming during check-in, but there was a strange glint in his eye that made me feel uneasy. I tried to brush it off as mere paranoia, but as night began to fall and the darkness closed in around me, strange noises started to echo through the trees. At first, they were just faint whispers, but soon they grew louder and more menacing. It sounded like someone was walking around outside my door, their footsteps heavy and deliberate. I tried to convince myself that it was just the wind or a stray animal, but deep down, I knew it was something else entirely, something that didn't want me there. One night, I woke up to the sound of rustling in the closet. My heart racing, I turned on the light and saw a figure standing in the corner, its eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. It was tall and gaunt, dressed in tattered clothing that seemed to be from another era. It spoke in a low, raspy voice, telling me that this place wasn't for me, that I shouldn't have come here. But before I could respond, it vanished into thin air. I packed my bags and left immediately, never looking back. But even now, years later, I can still hear those whispery footsteps and see that glowing figure in the closet. This Airbnb may have been cheap and secluded, but it came at too high a price.